Hey everybody, and welcome to XM All Access. I'm Justin Schaefer, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this brand new online program. Today is our third session of a 5-day series brought to you by the USA Science and Engineering Festival. The mission of the USA Science and Engineering Festival is to inspire the next generation, that's you, to pursue careers in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM. You can check out their other programs and events at usasciencefestival.org. Don't forget to mark your calendar for this time next week on Monday and Tuesday, the 18th and 19th, so you don't miss a moment of this exciting event. Over the course of this series, we'll be getting up close and personal with a number of STEM trailblazers, and we already have. Each day will feature a new topic with multiple speakers who are eager to answer your questions. I hope you're ready to be inspired by their stories and maybe even motivated to follow your own path in STEM. You guys are coming to us from all over the world. We have almost 50,000 registered attendees from Washington, D.C., California, Ohio, New Jersey, Alabama, Texas, Michigan, Puerto Rico, Alaska, and more from the United States. Also, international attendees joining us from Nigeria, Greece, France, Egypt, India, England, Mexico, and much, much more. Welcome to everybody. Hope you guys are going to enjoy this today. I'm here in New York City, and I'm excited to give you all that I can. And I hope you guys are ready to rock out with me and learn some new stuff about STEM. I'd like to take a moment to recognize our sponsor, AstraZeneca. A big thanks to AstraZeneca for their generous support of the XSTEM All Access virtual conference series. Before we jump into today's session, I'd like to share a little bit about myself. My name again is Justin Schaefer, but a lot of kids know me as Mr. Fascinate. You all can actually follow me on Instagram at Mr.Fascinate. I travel all over the world and excite young people about STEM. I've hosted a number of science TV shows, and I have my own cartoon series that I'm regularly putting out on social media. Feel free to go and check that out, follow, share, whatever you want to do. Now, let's get started with today's program. Our theme for today is exploring our planet, and guess what? I'm wearing my swimming trunks because it is going to get really fun up in here. We're going to be speaking to two individuals who are taking exploration to new depths. In this segment, we'll hear from Dr. David Gallo and Jill Heinerth. Dr. David Gallo is a renowned oceanographer and Titanic explorer, and Jill Heinerth is a celebrated underwater explorer and cave diver. Now, let's get this show on the road. I'm excited to introduce our very first speaker, Dr. David Gallo. Oceanographer Dr. David Gallo is a pioneer in ocean exploration. He is one of the few people who has seen the wreck of the RMS Titanic up close. David has participated in expeditions to every single one of the world's oceans and was one of the first scientists to use a combination of robots and submarines to explore the deep sea floor. As senior advisor for strategic initiatives at the RMS Titanic Incorporated, he is part of the team organizing the next and most sophisticated exploration of the Titanic thus far. Dr. David Gallo, welcome to our program.
Hey, thanks, Justin. Hi, everybody. How are you? And what I'd like to do is show you some of the things about the ocean. I'll show you a little bit of Titanic too, but to give you some idea, when people say everything's been done and explored, you'll see that no, it hasn't. So let's begin with that. Let's start going. I'm going to start with a picture that you probably know pretty well, and that's our beloved planet. But and a couple of things about that. You know, we take that picture for granted. And we shouldn't, because here we are stepping off the planet, going out into space, turning back around and looking at Earth. One thing most people don't think about, though, it's a snapshot. You know, the clouds aren't moving, the oceans aren't moving, nothing much is happening. There are no storms, no hurricanes. But this planet is incredibly dynamic. Earthquakes, volcanoes, as I said before, hurricanes and things like that. So it's dynamic. That's just one snapshot. The other thing is we call it the blue marble. We don't call it the brown marble. We don't call it the green marble. We don't call it the white marble. We call it the blue marble because 70% of our planet is covered with ocean. And that ocean, just to give you the important stuff, about half of the air you breathe, every other breath, comes out of the sea. Almost all the water you drink comes out of the ocean, goes through evaporation, clouds, it rains, and then you get the fresh water. The food you eat, more than 2 billion people on the planet depend on the oceans for for their protein. So the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, that's important stuff. And here's the kicker for that, is we've only explored less than 10%, somewhere around 7% of the ocean. So we don't even know what's out there, and yet we depend on the ocean for life. Now, one other thing, too, I keep saying one other thing because I love this. We could just stay on this one slide. You don't see us on there. There's 7 billion, 8 billion people on the planet, and we're not there. And we're almost like a virus on the Earth. I hate to bring that up like this, or a bacteria. And think of the Earth as an organism. You don't see us, but because of our behavior, we managed to change the chemistry of the ocean. We've changed the chemistry of the atmosphere, and yet you can't even see us. And in some ways, we've made the planet sick. We need to turn that around. The oceans are not a big blue fishbowl, and here's a view of the Earth with the oceans the water taken away. And you look at the seafloor, there's mountains down there, there's rivers down there, we call them currents. There's underwater lakes that I'll show you later on. There's a lot of underwater volcanoes. You see in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and even in the Pacific Ocean, there's that underwater mountain range, 50,000 miles long. It looks gray on this map, and it circles the entire world. It dwarfs any other mountain range on Earth. There's underwater waterfalls. So there's a lot of different ways to explore, and certainly in the last few years we've used robotics quite a bit, but nothing more dramatic than hopping in a submarine, going to the bottom. That's the Woods Hole ship in the background. It's called the Atlantis. And in the front, the submarine Elvin. The two guys on there are called swimmers. They're there to make sure everything's okay. But inside that submarine are 3 people about to take a journey to a completely different planet. And I'll show you what that's like to go down to the bottom of the sea. We'll hop in, close the hatch, and roll a video. Okay, I'm back. So what you saw there, that what looked like smoke coming out of the seafloor, that's actually water that's incredibly toxic, incredibly hot water, 700 degrees Fahrenheit. And what you're looking at there are pretty much aliens living on the very bottom of the ocean. We were positive that there would be no life in the deep ocean, but there's plenty of life. Here's a robot on the bottom look at that, an underwater volcano sitting there sucking in water. And here we are going across the seafloor, and you'll see an edge between what looks like rocks and some kind of mist. So the submarine is going forward. Nothing you've seen so far was really predicted. And so off in the distance, as we come through the mist, you'll see there's another one of those lines where it's a shoreline. There it is. And those are mussels and clams living on a shoreline. There's an eel on top of that. And that's at the bottom of the sea. There's a lake or a pond of water at the bottom of the sea. So you're in a sub looking out the window at another body of water, which is really bizarre. And again, something we never predicted to be there. When you go to the bottom of the ocean, you're really exploring. You really have to be prepared for just about anything. And I want to show you a couple of other things. Let's see. Let me get this right. So all you saw now, we never predicted. It's all part of exploration. And then, though, we can hop back to something like this. That's the Titanic, a picture of the Titanic. And the thing about Titanic, it wasn't a mystery. We knew that it sank to the bottom of the ocean in 1912 with a couple thousand people on board, but we didn't know where it was. And it took technology. It took a team of people. Everything I showed you up until now is not just one person. It's not Dave Gallo. It's a team of people, in some cases 50 people on the ship, to make this happen. And that's the spot, if you saw the movie, where Jack was king of the world, Jack and Rose. It's just the bow of Titanic. You can see an anchor in the background. Titanic's yet to be explored fully, and it's got a lot of stories yet to tell. Fascinating place at the bottom of the sea. Predicted, but we didn't know where it was. Here, I want to show you, took the water off the blue marble, and looking at this. So that's the blue marble dead ahead. That's the Earth without its water. You step off to the right and see that ball there. So if the Earth was the size of a basketball, that's the size of a ping pong ball. That's all the water on the Earth. You can do the math to figure it out. The average depth of the ocean, about 2 miles. But the oceans are about 3,000 miles across. So it's like frost on the glass, the thickness of the ocean. Now, that little speck to the far right, that's all the fresh water on the planet. So there's not a lot of water on this planet, especially fresh water, and we need to learn how to value it more. At nighttime, during the daytime, you can't see us on the planet, but at nighttime, we light the planet up in the dark, and everything you see there are the lights of humanity. So you can see the continents outlined. You see little big cities, small cities. And it's amazing to me because, as I said, there we are, 7 billion people, and we can make this work. The good news is I'm very optimistic that we have all the kinds of technology so far to realize what we've done wrong in the past. Now the trick is to explore more and then figure out where to go in the future, and that's partly up to you. Thank you very much.
Wow. David, that was some absolutely sensational video footage. Thank you for blowing all of our minds with all that cool stuff. And I always love seeing that diagram of the Earth with the water and then the fresh water as that little tiny speck. It just really puts a lot of things into perspective. So let's move right on into our Q&A. Yeah, some of our audience members have actually sent in questions before the show, so we'll check out what a few students have been asking. Here's our first question. So I think it's going to be on video.
Dr. Gallo, how can I help the ocean? Thank you.
That's a great question. How can you help the ocean? How can an individual help the ocean? Because I think sometimes we wait for these grand, big ideas, like whole countries come up with one big idea. That's important. But in the meantime, all of us can do everything we can. Think about how little water there is. Think about how important the oceans are to us, and treat the ocean like you would treat yourself. Everything you put on the ground, in your backyard, in a city street, things like that make their way to the sea. So just keeping plastics and stuff like that, keep that in your mind and make your own difference for yourself. And little by little, we'll start turning things around. Great question.
All right, here's another one. Charlie from Brooklyn, New York. She asked, Dr. Gallo, did Jacques Cousteau's work have an impact on you? And if so, how?
Oh, Jacques Cousteau had a big impact on me because I was young then, and there was a TV show with these French guys in submarines and in their swimming shorts at the bottom of the ocean, exploring new things I'd never seen before. I grew up in the middle of New York State, a long way from the ocean. And ever since then, I think we've been looking for the next Jacques Cousteau, one person. And I don't think that's right. I think we have a little bit of Jacques Cousteau in all of us. And the trick is to wake that up. And I hope, what got me into the oceans was one image in National Geographic magazine that I said, that's cool. I want to do that one image. And I'm hoping today you saw something in that quick videotape that you say, oh, that's really cool. I want to find out about it.
Gotcha. Okay, here's another one here. Malik, an educator from Tacoma Park, Maryland, wants to know, my student wants to be a marine biologist. What's the best way for her to get exposure to the field?
Best way, I think, is, stay, internet is a great way. Find a place that you trust and watch all those video clips you can. You got to be careful, of course, with internet, but just start looking at things. If you find something you like, that's the good point. Find your passion. Find that spot that I like whales, I like sharks, but this thing I really like. And knowing that you as one person, as a scientist or an engineer, electrician, technician, you can actually make a difference in what we know and don't know, and that'll have an impact on the future of the planet. So I think, internet's the best route until you find an organization that you like, and there's great ones that will reach out to you too. And so find those like Oceana and places like that. O-Search to track sharks. Find that place, follow them along, and send them an email and say, I really love what you do.
I love that. I think that's a really important way to get into the game. You have to reach out. You have to be that person that takes the initiative. So I think that's excellent advice. I really like this question here. When using robots underwater, how are they controlled and what are their jobs?
Okay. Robots, there are things called autonomous robots. And there the robot goes over the side of the ship. You say, go down there, make a map, take some pictures, come back. That's autonomous. The other ones, if you like video games, just like that, we drive over you have a pilot that drives with a joystick. And that's kind of cool. So there's a tether cable that goes all the way down to the bottom of the ocean, a couple of miles. And there's a team of people up on the ship driving that robot around, which is cool because they can stay down there a long time. Unlike video games, no one knows what you're going to find when you're exploring the bottom of the ocean. So that's how it's done from the surface ship in the control room.
That's so cool. I'm sure a lot of our young people in the audience play esports, so that's a really cool opportunity to bring that to real life.
Yep.
I see another one here. Rowan, a third grader from Waldorf, Maryland. If we started cleaning the ocean today, how long would it take before the ocean was fully cleaned?
There's a lot of issues with that. We have to do that for starters. We need to start right now. And a lot of communities are doing that. They're banning plastic bags, single-use plastics. If you go out to the middle of the ocean in places and catch a fish, look inside the stomach of the fish, you'll find little bits of plastic. That's not natural. That's on us. If you look in the flesh, you find things from pharmacies. You find things like caffeine, stuff that we put down our drains in those fish. So, we need to find out how to correct that. And again, we kind of got in this with baby steps. And I think that baby steps are going to get us out of it. So the important thing is do your own thing, get more of your community to do that thing. Then it gets larger from your village to the city, from the city to the county, finally to the state and bigger. And I know places that are doing that, but they all start with an individual or a couple of individuals that really care about the sea.
Well, I like this one here from Kadia. She asks, what emotions were you feeling when you first saw the wreckage of the Titanic?
Like everyone else, the thing about Titanic is when we were exploring it with robots in 2010, and there's always noise inside the van because there's a lot of information coming up inside that control room. There's the pilot, there's the engineers, there's the scientists, technicians, and suddenly everything can go quiet, boom. And when that happens, there's something on that screen. Maybe it's a doll, maybe it's a spot on the ship that someone said goodbye to their loved ones, that the emotion just gets to you. And so I think when shipwrecks really have that power to take you a little bit out of science and make you realize how important it is that you're holding this icon in your hands and you're responsible for bringing it to the people. So I think it's a powerful feeling when you see something like that.
Wow. Here's one. I think this could be a two-part question. And this is going to be our last question. What is the longest you stayed at sea, and describe your favorite underwater mission?
Longest at sea was 6 weeks, and it was between Africa and Antarctica, I believe. It seemed like it was 6 years. Sometimes expeditions, you might be out for 30 days and it feels like 3. Sometimes you're out for 3 days and it feels like 30. Depends on if the ocean's nice to you or not. And that's the longest. The most exciting expedition, it's the next one is the most exciting one. That's one way to put it, because you never know what you're going to find. But I think back when I was doing my thesis, way back working on my PhD, there was a spot in the Pacific. Pretty much I know that spot. I'm probably the first person to see it, last person to see it, all sorts of bizarre animals. And that has a special spot in my heart, that one particular place.
Wow. Well, this is very impactful. As I was telling you before we started, my major was marine and environmental science. So it's always cool to see someone who took that all the way down off on the deep end, quite literally. So that's all the time we have for the question and answer period. Thank you so much, Dr. Gallo. We'll see you again towards the end of our program. Everyone, please give David a virtual round of applause and high fives. And we'll see you again shortly, David.
Thanks, Justin.
All right. So before we dive into our next speaker session, let's take a few minutes for Brain Break. All right. So Roy Moy III, also known as the singing engineer, was set to perform this past April, like me, live at the USA Science and Engineering Festival Expo stage. Roy is an aerospace engineer, and as a Black, Puerto Rican, and Mexican person in the world of STEM, Roy noticed there weren't many people in his office that looked like him. I've definitely been there before too. In 2017, he came up with a solution to this problem by combining his love for singing and songwriting with his professional training in STEM. This solution materialized into a company dedicated to inspiring the next generation of multicultural STEM professionals through engaging and entertaining music, STEM music, all one word. And guess what? He's written a song just for you. Get up and get ready for some Roy Moy III.
What's up, XSTEM family? It's your boy, Roy Moy III, the singing engineer, here with STEM music. And guess what? It's time for a brain break. So get up on your feet, get ready to dance, get ready to sing as we introduce the next topic, underwater caves. Let's go.
Underwater caves. We got to go low. We got to go low. Underwater to the ocean floor. Underwater, it's time to explore. Underwater caves, underwater caves. Underwater caves, underwater caves. Gotta get down below the waves to see underwater caves, underwater caves. Underwater caves, underwater caves. Underwater caves, underwater caves. Gotta get down below the waves to see underwater caves, underwater caves. Take a deep dive in the ocean, wearing your scuba gear. Gotta jump right in, there's no need to have any fear. It's time to explore, Mama Earth, she has so much more. Both history and new species, tell me what you're waiting for. It's time to get low,
Abajo,
everybody get low,
abajo,
to the ocean floor.
abajo.
Underwater caves, you know. Underwater caves, underwater caves. Underwater caves, underwater caves. Gotta get down below the waves to see underwater caves, underwater caves. Underwater caves, underwater caves. Underwater caves, underwater caves. Gotta get down below the waves to see underwater caves, underwater caves.
Traveling to inner space, chilling in a cave, finding different life forms, how do they behave? Some of them are older than the dinosaurs we know. Can't believe we learning all this information down below. Then we got rocks that are showing Earth's age, showing evolution, talking about climate change. Many caves hold cultural history. We can learn about our ancestors. Indeed. Dale.
It's time to get low,
Abajo,
everybody get low,
abajo,
to the ocean floor.
abajo.
Underwater caves, you know. Underwater caves, underwater caves. Underwater caves, underwater caves. Gotta get down below the waves to see underwater caves, underwater caves. Underwater caves, underwater caves. Underwater caves, underwater caves. Gotta get down below the waves to see underwater caves, underwater caves.
Great job. We just had an incredible brain break. But before I go, I want to give away some STEM Music wristbands. So do me a favor and follow STEM Music at The STEM Music. That's at TheStemMusic on Instagram and Facebook. And I will be choosing some lucky winners for these wristbands on Instagram and Facebook. See you later.
Underwater caves, underwater caves. All right, I probably can't sing as good as Roy, but man, that was a jam, right? I thought that was pretty nice. Follow him at The STEM Music, like he said, at The STEM Music. And what a cool way to show us how you STEM. Earlier this week, we kicked off the Show Us How You STEM activity on social media. And guys, just tag us at USA Science Fest. You can tag me at Mr. Fascinate and use the hashtag Show Us How You STEM. You can share your science fair projects, how you explore nature, how you're exploring our planet, and more. Anything you want to, just show us how you STEM. And guess what we can do, guys? If you guys were on our virtual stream yesterday, you remember this. We're going to take a virtual selfie. So if you got some cameras, you better take some time and get them out. And I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. And let's look at my fake watch here. And get your phones ready because we're about to take a selfie, all right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Gonna hold it for a little bit longer, just like this. My teeth are starting to hurt a little bit, but I'm doing this for you guys. Okay, so hopefully you guys got that. Be sure to tag at USA Science Fest or tag me at Mr. Fascinate. Share some love with me. Show me what you came up with. So that was a pretty fun break, right? And thanks again, Roy. I thought that was an awesome job. I will be reaching out and shouting you out on my social media pages as well and getting us learning more about underwater cave diving. If you're just tuning in, today we are exploring the undersea and cave diving with our amazing experts. You get to hear from both of them again at the end of the stream. My name is Justin Schaefer, also known as Mr. Fascinate, and I hope you're ready to hear from our next speaker, Jill Heinerth. Jill Heinerth is one of the few women in the world to rise to prominence in the fields of underwater exploration and cave diving. Her work takes her all over the globe, where she dives in some of the most fascinating and dangerous places, such as inside Antarctic icebergs and into watery caves underneath mountains of Siberia. She chronicles her work and adventures through the production of award-winning underwater films and photography, as well as her best-selling book, Into the Planet. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, STEM people, join me in welcoming Jill Heinerth.
Hey, nice
Jill,
to
how's it
be
going?
here with you.
Yeah,
I have to say, Roy
appreciate
Moy's intro was, oh, sorry. I think Roy Moy's intro was like the coolest intro ever. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I love your blue background, Jill. I'm going to let you go ahead and take it right away.
All right, you bet. And I'm going to immediately go here and share a screen because I want to show you some pretty cool images here today. Let me just start them. So I'm going to talk about the world beneath your feet, because even though I'm in caves in the middle of a landlocked area, the ocean begins beneath my feet, and it begins beneath yours as well. I am an underwater explorer, and so this is my business card. And explorer is really the best way I can describe what I do, because it's a bit of a hybrid career. You might find me underneath the ice, or you might find me on top of the ice. This is actually in the Northwest Passage while I'm camping out and shooting a documentary film. But I also travel to places where you might not imagine diving, like the middle of the Sahara Desert. This is actually very close to the Libyan border. Or under Siberia's Ural Mountains, there are these magnificent gypsum caves. Even inside volcanic lava tubes. This is in Lanzarote and the Canary Islands, where we were diving deep inside lava tubes. A lot of my work involves getting images, so photography, videography, but also becoming the eyes and the hands for scientists that I collaborate with. Caves are absolutely worthy of exploration and investigation. There is so much that we do. Museums of natural history is how I like to describe caves. These are also places where past cultures have used these as portals to the underworld, and also a place where we find even, bones of extinct animals that are no longer with us on Earth. I get to swim through the veins of Mother Earth. I'm literally swimming through the sustenance of our planet. And that's an incredible opportunity for me. And I think you'll agree, these places are beautiful. And in some cases, it's almost like swimming through a crystal chandelier. But I also see signs of trouble, and I like to remind people that anything you do anywhere on the planet soaks into the ground and can affect the water. And where I dive, I'm kind of at the beginning of the pipe. So you can think of me as that canary in a coal mine a little bit, exploring your water resources. And I think that water resource protection and water literacy, understanding where your water comes from and how your life is intertwined with it, is probably one of the most important issues of the next generation, because we have a lot of effects on our water systems. Water soaks into the ground and affects absolutely everything. Water runs off surfaces, paved surfaces, off the landscapes where you don't feel very connected to the ocean. You do affect the ocean. Water eventually ends up underground in aquifers where I get to swim. So sometimes water resides in between the grains of sand in the soils, but sometimes it's in larger places where I can fit. And I've fit in some pretty strange places. The water from the cave then spills out of the ground and it feeds springs that fill up creeks and rivers, and those lead to estuaries that support wildlife. And that's important to understand. Water is important to every facet of our lives. And that means when we move close to it, we have to be very, very careful about how we affect our water systems, because we see the effect of pollutants running out from the landscape into the ocean and beyond. So we have a water quality and quantity issue. There's plenty of water on our Earth, but we are running out of clean sources that we can afford. So my work takes me all around the planet, mostly to this inner Earth water in places like submerged beneath mountainsides. Like inside that mountain, we have 53 miles of passages filled with partially with water, waterfalls, running rivers inside the mountain. And I get to explore these places and dive beneath the surface of inner Earth and learn about what's there. So some of the work that I do, I use rebreathers. This is a life support system that's kind of like a spacesuit that helps me extend the range of my exploration on missions like this, where we made the very first accurate three-dimensional map of a cave system. We have to wear a lot of this equipment in order to take care of us for long missions that can go as long as 22 hours before we're finished. This takes a lot of technology. It takes a lot of volunteers to do these things, but it allows us to have opportunities like this where people topside can track where I am swimming beneath their feet. So these guys are actually walking over the surface and even into this restaurant while I'm diving in a cave beneath that restaurant. This same technology that we started developing more than 20 years ago is now an artificially intelligent robot that can map the cave system even without my help. My work also takes me to other parts of the world, like down to Antarctica, where I got to cave dive inside an iceberg for the first time in history and see not only the formations of this remarkable environment, but the life that lives inside of there. And there's plenty of life inside of caves. In fact, there are biologists that specialize in examining that life that never sees the light of day and is more similar to things that live on the bottom of the ocean than anything you've seen before. Animals like this that have no eyes and no pigment, that can swim and hunt with venomous fangs and pincers and attack things and feed over a very long period of time, living in these remarkably beautiful environments. Now, I also work with archaeologists and paleontologists in caves because we find remains of past civilizations here that can tell us stories about these cultures that are no longer with us anymore, because they leave behind the remains of their livestock, for instance, but also things that they might have used for ceremonies, so pottery, and they even leave behind the remains of their people as well, sometimes put there for funerals and sometimes used for other, sacrificial practices, things like that. So we find remarkable things in these caves, and now we're using exciting technology to scan these individual things as well as the environments that we find them in, so we can share that with archaeologists and paleontologists. So we have much to see in these remarkable environments, and we can even see them like this, using holograms to both scan and then experience and share the data with people who can wear these holographic lenses and see what we're seeing. So there is so much more I could share with you that we find in these underwater caves, but I feel very, very privileged to be able to work with many scientists in different areas of study and examine and become their hands and eyes, really, in the environment.
Jill, that is so cool. Man, like those pictures that you shared were absolutely amazing. I don't know about the other folks in the audience, but there were several times where like I was trying to keep my jaw up because it was slowly dropping uncontrollably. So I just really think that the work that you produce is amazing, and I'm so glad that you do what you do to shed insight on what that stuff is that a lot of us don't know about. All right, so let's go into some audience questions here. We have a video question from one of our viewers for you, Jill.
What was your favorite expedition and why?
Oh boy. There are so many. It's always so difficult to choose, but if I could just share my screen here for a second again, I can actually show you a picture of my favorite place in the world while I just talk about it a little bit. It's the blue holes of the Bahamas. These are stunning environments that have been dry at 3 different times in Earth's history, or actually we think even 4 different times in Earth's history. And I think these are some of the prettiest caves that I've ever had a chance to swim through. And I've worked with paleoclimatologists looking at Sahara dust from the Sahara Desert that we find inside of these caves. And that helps us date the caves back about 350,000 years. So I think that's my favorite. So thanks for that.
Wow. That one is pretty cool. Here's one from a high school attendee. They say, I read that more people have been to the moon than to some of the places that you've dived. Do you think eventually more people will begin studying inside the planet as we do in space? And I want to add something to that. What incentive do you think the government, funders, labs need to make that happen?
Oh boy. I'm so privileged to get to go to these places that nobody's ever seen. And I feel like it's my duty really to bring back the images to inspire more people to explore the inside of our planet. Because the age of exploration is not over. Just because we've climbed the mountains and we've been to the bottom of the Mariana Trench like a couple of times, it doesn't mean that we've stopped. There's so much science to do. And I hope that as we increase water literacy, which is where your water comes from, how you might be unintentionally overusing it or polluting it, and how you can protect it for the future generations, then I hope that will inspire more people to fund both exploration and then preservation of these water environments, because this is our future. As David so eloquently put, these are the lungs of the planet, as well as the place where we get all of our sustenance.
Fascinating. So Charlie here, a 5th grader from Brooklyn, is back and asks, what is the scariest experience you had while diving?
I've had plenty. There was one particular dive where I led a scientist into a small cave about as high as the space beneath your bed. And we were going to get some important algal samples because some of the things that live in caves are of great interest to astrobiologists. But unfortunately, my partner, who was behind me, got stuck and wedged and panicked. So when we turn around, that meant that this individual became the cork in the bottle containing my life. So I had to free this person who was stuck. The guideline became broken in the process. I had to patch that. And then also one of my 2 tanks became so wedged with clay from digging this person out that my life support was failing. So I had to solve that problem too, while we were completely blind, like in a silt out of clay. And but that's what we train for. We always get into the water understanding that the worst can happen and we must be able to solve it. And so we both got home just fine. But thanks for that question. It's a good one.
Wow, that sounds exhilarating and not in the best kind of way.
Yeah.
Here, a 5th grader in Riverside, California. Who inspired you to become a cave diver, and how did they inspire you?
Well, I wanted to be a diver from the time I was a little kid. Again, just like David, from watching Jacques Cousteau, but also from watching the Apollo missions. That made me wanted to be an explorer. But I did not know that cave diving was a thing until I was already a diver, and I was exploring on my own. In fact, I found my first underwater cave before I actually knew that you could get formal training in cave diving. So I guess it was sort of accidental, one step at a time, that I discovered that caves were my thing.
Interesting. So here's another cool one. What is the most interesting species or discovery you've made in the depths of the ocean?
Well, I'm very fortunate to work with biologists often, and I really love that. And my very favorite creature is that little thing you saw swimming in the jar called remipede. So he has no eyes. He has no pigment because you don't need eyes if you live in the dark. You don't need a fancy outfit if nobody can see you. But it does have venomous fangs and pincers, and it can attack something 40 times its size, neutralize it, turn its guts into jello, and then suck the life out of its prey over time. And that animal has not evolved in over 65 million years. So he predates the extinction of the dinosaurs. We find him in fossil records in rock that are over 65 million years old, and he still swims in the cave today. So I think that's extraordinary, and I think he can teach us a lot about evolution and survival.
Wow. Wow. What an incredible discovery. Here's a cool one. Well, this is important, I think, for our audience as well. What did you study in college to get into this field?
You're going to be shocked. I am an artist. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Visual Communications Design, and I am self-taught in everything from rebreather diving to all of the different expeditions that I'm involved in. So every time I'm working with a new scientist, I have to take a deep dive into their work. And I start reading scientific papers and textbooks and learn as much as I can so that I can be not just their hands and eyes, as I have said, but I can also communicate for them. I can kind of be that audience that is not a specialist. They spend their whole life specializing in a particular facet of science, so they don't have the time to necessarily specialize in what I do. So together, we can collaborate and do some really exciting things.
And that's cool. I just want to follow up with that. So, if you're, let's say you have a scientist, maybe the first couple of times that you're doing this, when you didn't have this amazing, repository of cool photos and experience, and you have an art degree and a bachelor's of art, and what was it? The design and communications or media?
Yeah, visual communications. Yeah.
Right. So you're reaching out to this doctor. Like, how does that conversation work? How do you get to the next stage of that process?
Well, that's actually a really good message for everyone that's listening out there. Everything that has opened a door for me in my life began because I volunteered. So I reach out to someone and say, hey, can I help you? Can I come on your expedition? Can I support you? But I also, today, there are very many fewer gatekeepers in terms of doing expeditionary work today. So I come up with my own ideas and I pitch them, and I find the scientists that might be interested in what I'm learning, and together we look for funding and support in order to go make investigations.
Wow, that is a cool testimony. Thanks, Jill. That's inspiration for me. I'm definitely taking notes on that one for future reference as a fellow self-taught person. So let's take a moment to give Jill a virtual high five, a virtual round of applause. Thanks, Jill, for sharing all that amazing work. And Jill, I know you're not leaving us just yet. Let's take a moment here to welcome back Dr. David Gallo.
Thanks, Justin. Jill,
right.
How cool was that?
Justin?
Awesome.
Yeah, okay. We're stacked now with a panel of veteran science heavy hitters. And so I think we have a couple more questions here. Let's see. Well, this one is cool. You kind of touched on this a little bit, but maybe you could provide more insight into the question, David. They want to know, what big expedition do you have planned next?
Well, the biggest one that's occupying my time is back to Titanic, which, Titanic's about 2 miles down beneath the waves. It's a very dangerous place because it's got a lot of jagged edges. It's a shipwreck, and you have to be very careful around it. Plus, it's a very important place. It's call it an icon of the deep. So we want to be careful. We go with a lot of respect because people have died there. So it's a mix of getting the right team, the right technology, robots, cameras, and then coming up with the plan Just like if you're putting an orchestra together, you want the best musicians, give them the best instruments, and then the piece of music to make it all come together. So that's what I'm doing right now, Titanic.
Makes a lot of sense. And what about you, Jill? What's your next big adventure?
Well, because we're all isolated here, I think that most of my next work is going to be very close to home. There's a cave system near me with 10 kilometers of passage, and I am working with a specialist in bivalves, in shells, and he's a malacologist, so I'm becoming a high-speed malacologist. In freshwater caves, we have discovered an endangered species, and actually there's a lot of these bivalves, and once a year it grows its own flesh into a little lure that it hangs out of the side of its shell, and the lure has, a dorsal fin, it has an eye spot, it has a tail basically, and it flicks it back and forth to attract one species of fish, in this case the lake sturgeon. The lake sturgeon nips at the mussel's flesh, and the mussel sprays its young into the gills of the sturgeon. And as long as the sturgeon is young and its immune system is not too developed, then it will allow those to develop and then carry them around for a little bit before they get ejected and they start a new colony. So freshwater mussels need a host, and the lake sturgeon is the host. And so I'm documenting the life cycle of these mussels, and we'll have a few scientific papers come out of this, I'm sure. And this will also help us to preserve not just the mussels and the lake sturgeon, but the water that they come from.
That is so cool. Wow. Man, I could go on and on with this, but I know we're running short on time here. I have one more question for you guys, just for fun here, and I'll answer it myself too. So have you guys picked up any cool hobbies or special interests during this time, maybe even unrelated to what you do? And so for me, I think the cool thing that I was doing a little bit before was, like I said, I do a little bit of cartoons and animation, but I couldn't really justify sitting down and actually spending a lot of time doing that. And now I'm making a bunch of science cartoons almost 3 times a week, just because I have the time. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything better. So so it's been a really cool hobby. Let's start with you, David. Any cool hobbies or things you picked up?
Sure. I mean, I love my music. I love music. It's great no matter where I am on the planet, whether it's here on a plane going to an expedition, on the expedition. Some people might say maybe I play video games, and I kind of like video games. It's amazing that with a joystick and this TV to my behind me on that side, that I can, a couple of clicks, I'm exploring a unknown world with a bunch of people from around this planet. And the last one is, I think, gardening. I love gardening, planting plants, roses, and that kind of thing. It's fantastic to me to do something like that.
What about you, Jill?
Well, I'm doing lots of artistic endeavors, lots of reading for future projects, but I'm also gardening. In fact, I live in a little 800 square foot condo, but we have a full farm going on in here. So we have been living off of our own greens all winter long, and now we've got all our plants going, and they'll be probably this week ready to go outdoors because it's just getting warm enough to put some of these things in the ground, but we can still farm right off the windowsill inside.
Really cool stuff. Well, David and Jill, had so much fun chatting with you both today. I really wish I met you guys when I was in college. I definitely would have asked to be, or begged rather, to be either of your interns. You guys are doing such cool work. I'm sure our audience feels exactly the same way. Thanks again for joining us, and hopefully I'll see you guys again soon in real life one of these days.
Thanks, Justin. I hope so.
All right. Yeah.
So I hope you guys enjoyed today's 3rd installment of XSTEM All Access. Please tune in Monday at the same time, 1 p.m. Eastern, for Science That Saves Lives. On Monday, we'll be hearing from medical oncologist and drug discoverer Dr. Mika Sovach and neuroscientist and entrepreneur Dr. Greg Gage. Plus, we have some very, very special guests planned on Monday that you will not want to miss. Dr. Anthony Fauci and Dr. Francis Collins from the NIH will be making a special appearance. Also coming up on Tuesday next week for our final session, we have NASA astronaut Christina Cook and NASA systems engineer Bobak Firdausi. They'll both be joining us. And don't forget, you guys can submit your questions in advance for a better chance at getting a shout in the program. Check the email in the link or submit your questions to our social media pages. Before we say goodbye to today, I'd love to thank our sponsor, AstraZeneca, for supporting this program. AstraZeneca would like to invite students, parents, and teachers to take a virtual field trip and learn more about their Generation Health program. Go to howsciencepowersus.com or see the link below the video player to learn more. I'll see you guys tomorrow for more STEM inspiration, or rather Monday. I'll see you guys for more STEM inspiration, and don't forget to show us how you STEM. Tag us at USA Science Fest. You can tag me at Mr. Fascinate and use the hashtag #ShowUsSTEM. We'll be sharing some of our favorite posts on the last day of XSTEM All Access, so be sure to tag us for an opportunity to appear on our program. And don't forget to share those selfies. Tag me at Mr. Fascinate, tag USA Science Fest, and show us how you guys are STEMming. Hope to see you guys next week. Thanks again. Peace.